The movie opens with Madeline and Owen engrossed in a scientific experiment in their lab. Suddenly, a fire breaks out, forcing them to flee the lab. Despite the danger, they return to continue their work. As Madeline goes through her routine, she narrates the importance of rules in scientific experiments, emphasizing that the greater the experiment, the more crucial the rules become. However, she acknowledges that when things go wrong, sometimes the rules need to be discarded. Back in the lab, Madeline and Owen prepare to test their experiment. Madeline requests an apple, but Owen gives her an orange, causing some frustration. Despite the mix-up, they proceed. Owen places the orange in a glass tube, rechecks the code, and initiates the test. The orange disappears with buzzing and zapping sounds. They observe no trace of the orange and count down until it should rematerialize. Initially concerned about calculation errors, they are relieved when the orange successfully rematerializes exactly 1 minute into the future. Excited, Madeline records a memo noting the success and the need for further analysis. Later, they celebrate with Rory Devonshire. Rory praises their work and suggests sending the orange to the past next. Madeline emphasizes the need for more orange tests to replicate results, while Owen suggests moving on to testing with a mouse. They disagree on the number of tests needed before using a mouse, with Owen estimating around 50. In the car, Owen reflects positively on their meeting, anticipating that the next round of funding should come in soon. They return to the lab and use a mouse for their experiment. Owen places the mouse in the glass tube, but it explodes shortly after. Frustrated and angry, Madeline records the trial's conclusion as a failure. Later, as Madeline works alone in the lab, she realizes the failure of the mouse experiment was due to an error in her code. She fixes the mistake and decides to test the experiment on herself. Leaving a voice memo for Owen, she starts the machine and disappears. The next thing she knows, she wakes up outside the lab. Owen comes running and helps her back inside. He asks how she feels, and she responds that she feels great. He confirms that her test results are fine. Madeline admits she was angry and wanted to experiment without Owen, not wanting to witness another mouse's fate. She also confesses to having had more wine than usual. Owen reassures her that she proved the experiment works. He emphasizes the need to document her entire experience, though she finds it hard to recall details. Owen praises her for solving their issues and acknowledges her recklessness, stressing the need for rationality moving forward. They agree to approach the experiments with more caution and rationality from now on. Owen is outside the lab collecting samples when Madeline, standing nearby, begins to stare at him strangely. Suddenly, she runs toward him and attacks him. In self-defense, Owen pushes her, causing her to fall and die upon impact. Panicked, he rushes to her side and realizes she is dead. At that moment, another Madeline emerges from the lab, leaving Owen in shock. He instructs her to go back to the garage and follows her inside. Confused and alarmed, she asked who the person outside was. Owen, equally bewildered, confirms that it was indeed her. They try to comprehend the situation. Madeline realizes she might have made an error with the code. She explains that she created a loop as a precaution in case the script got hung up, which inadvertently caused the replication of herself. Madeline estimates that the code cycles out to the point of the loop every hour, meaning 3,600 versions of her will appear each day. Madeline, horrified, acknowledges that he just killed the first duplicate. Later that night, Owen and Madeline sit down to discuss the situation. Owen apologizes, struggling with the feeling that he killed her, even though it wasn't exactly her. Madeline reassures him, but Owen interrupts, apologizing for what he's about to suggest. Madeline anticipates his thoughts, knowing he is about to mention the Novikov principle, which states that two versions of the same person cannot exist in the same place and time. Owen suggests they need to eliminate the duplicates as they appear. He points out that since Madeline anticipated his thoughts, the other duplicates likely would too, explaining why the duplicate tried to kill him first. Owen argues that their only option is to eliminate the duplicates, stating that it's a matter of survival for them. The next day, Owen waits for Madeline with a knife. When the duplicated Madeline arrived, he stabbed her in her throat, killing her. The next day, Owen decides to use nitrogen gas to kill the arriving Madeline duplicates. He sets up a tent over the arrival area and releases the gas when each duplicate appears, causing them to suffocate and die. This becomes a routine for Owen, who then disposes of the bodies by burning them in acid. One day, as Owen waits for the next duplicate to arrive so he can turn on the gas, the duplicate shows up already dead. Puzzled, he goes inside and informs the real Madeline about what happened. Together, they examine the dead duplicate, trying to determine why she appeared already deceased, but they cannot figure it out. The situation leaves them both bewildered and concerned about the implications. Later, as they sit talking, Madeline proposes a plan. She suggests that when she presses the button, she can go back and stop herself before she goes forward, change the code, and ensure the duplicates never see her. Owen, visibly stressed, responds that they've already messed things up significantly, insisting they should stick with what's working and avoid any more risks. The next day, as Owen prepares to handle the usual routine, the real Madeline unexpectedly shows up. Owen is alarmed and insists she shouldn't be there. Madeline argues that if the duplicate shows up dead, it won't matter. Owen urges her to go back inside, saying it's not a joke. Madeline, however, has an idea. What if they try to talk to the duplicate? Owen is skeptical. Just then, the alarm rings, signaling the arrival of another duplicate. The future Madeline appears gasping. The real Madeline tries to engage with her, but the duplicate tears the tent with a knife and launches an attack on Owen. As Madeline tries to help Owen, the future Madeline overpowers her. In a desperate move, Owen stabs the future Madeline from behind, ending the struggle. The next day, Owen prepares for the usual routine and Madeline joins him. They continue their grim task of eliminating the duplicates in different ways. One day, Rory unexpectedly shows up at their house. Rory greets Madeline warmly, mentioning that he couldn't get a hold of them and decided to visit in person. Madeline nervously tries to make small talk and offers coffee, attempting to stall. Rory, sensing her hesitation, presses for an update on their work and insists on seeing the lab. As Madeline awkwardly tries to deflect, Owen fights a future Madeline in the background, out of Rory's sight. Madeline struggles to maintain the conversation, explaining that their mouse test failed, and Owen and she have differing views on what constitutes success. Rory, impatient but understanding, leaves, urging Madeline to keep him informed and convey his message to Owen. Madeline approached Owen with determination, insisting they catch the duplicate and talk to her. She believed the future duplicate held crucial information, potentially offering a way to stop the loop. As they discussed their plan, the future Madeline arrived. Owen, prepared to take action, attempted to stab her. However, the future Madeline deflected his attack, causing him to accidentally stab the real Madeline instead. Later, Owen sat with the future Madeline, who already understood the situation and her role in causing the loop. She knew they had to kill the duplicates, and she was willing to help. Curious, she asked how many Madelines Owen had spoken to, learning she was number 51. She reflected on her extra 50 days in the future, noting how it likely made her different from the first Madeline. Owen acknowledged the grim reality of 50 other Madelines dead. She sensed he was shaken by killing the first duplicate, especially since they had spent more time together. Owen reiterated that two Madelines couldn't coexist. Later, Owen went out alone while Madeline was sleeping and headed to the lab where he met Rory. Owen showed him the machine just as Madeline arrived with a bottle of wine. Owen asked Rory if he wanted to see how it worked, and they demonstrated by putting an egg into the machine. Moments later, a chick appeared from the future. Rory was stunned and delighted. He excitedly mentioned how it would make for an amazing demo at their first press conference and predicted they would make history. Owen cautioned that they still needed time to perfect the machine and work out the kinks. When Rory asked how much time, Owen hesitated, suggesting it could take months or even years. Rory, bemused but insistent, urged them to speed up their work. Madeline, the future version, had developed a disturbing enthusiasm for killing the duplicates that arrived daily, while Owen grew increasingly sorrowful. One day, Owen approached her, saying they needed to talk. He started by distinguishing between the original Madeline, who had first come back, and the current Madeline. He proposed calling the original Madeline 1, but she found it offensive due to the many dead Madelines. They compromised on Dead Madeline 1. Owen explained that Dead Madeline 1 had suggested going back in time to fix the code before pressing the button. Future Madeline dismissed it as a terrible idea, but Owen insisted it was the only solution, as their current situation was unsustainable. Future Madeline, however, was content with their grim routine, emphasizing her priority was to keep other Madelines away away and prevent unraveling space, time, and their relationship. The next day, Owen and Madeline went to talk to Rory. As they approached, Rory stopped Owen from entering, explaining that Madeline didn't want him to join the conversation. Owen tried to listen from outside, but couldn't hear anything. After a while, Madeline opened the door, and Owen realized she had told Rory everything. Rory, surprisingly calm, offered to help them dispose of the bodies. Owen is working on the machine again. He tried it with an apple, but the apple didn't get transported this time. He angrily unplugged everything and sat in frustration. The next day, Owen arrived late and was struck from behind by Madeline with a baseball bat. When he woke up, he was tied to a chair. Madeline clarified that she was not Madeline 51, but number 115. Madeline expressed her frustration, explaining that Owen saw all Madelines as replaceable. She mentioned that Madeline 51 had informed her of his true feelings. As the alarm rang signaling another Madeline's arrival, Owen panicked and begged to be freed. Madeline taunted him, revealing that the other Madelines outside were celebrating. Back in the lab, Owen warned her about the potential consequences of their actions, but she dismissed his concerns. She recounted how the Madelines operated like a collective organism and how she became their leader after conflicts arose. Despite Owen's confusion and fear, Madeline coldly reassured him that she was still his wife, but their relationship had irreversibly changed. Madeline went out to talk with the other Madelines. While they were conversing, Rory showed up at the door. One of the Madelines answered, and Rory offered her a place to stay if she didn't feel safe. She agreed, but as she was about to leave, an alarm triggered, prompting her to check. Then another Madeline went out to meet Rory and told him she had decided to stay while the first one was held without her will. Later that night, two Madelines saw Madeline 115 dragging a body. The next day, Madeline 115 tried to lift spirits, but others noted several Madelines were missing. She suggested they stop using numbers to avoid individualism, proposing they think of themselves as one entity. Some Madelines resisted, preferring individuality, while others argued for unity, emphasizing cooperation over competition. At night, Madeline went to Owen and tried to be intimate, but became angry when she realized he thought she was 51. During their argument, 115 arrived and killed her. Madeline 51 saw this and quickly took Owen to Rory's home for safety. Rory advised that going back in time could fix their mistakes, a suggestion that aligned with Madeline 51's plan to stop the loop by preventing the first Madeline's actions. Owen expressed doubt, having failed with a previous attempt using an apple. However, Madeline 51 showed him the apple, proving it was possible. 115 secretly listened as Owen prepared to travel back. When Owen activated the machine, he found himself in the future instead of the past. He encountered a future Madeline who taunted him about their situation and revealed a note saying he was killing them. Owen, realizing the gravity of the situation, confronted her, slashing her face in a desperate move. However, she retaliated and stabbed him. Meanwhile, 51 went back to the past and stopped Madeline from touching the button.